Party. And he was supposed to be here last month, and he's now here today, and we would like to welcome him.
Thank you, Marcia. It's a pleasure and honor to be back down here in Round Rock and Williamson County. Without a doubt, you guys have a lot of challenges being next door to Travis County, just the same as we have our challenges up here in Dallas County. And I think it's very fortunate that I get to follow a dear friend of mine, John Gondova. Hopefully you understood him when he spoke here. He's a Marine. Sometimes I have to talk a little slow to those Marine guys. Just kidding. But his topic and his expertise is something that I want to talk about a little bit today, because I think it's so important, definitely for those of you out there that are running for office here in the state of Texas, and for each and every one of us here. How many of you all have ever heard of a thing called the Red-Green Alliance? Very few. Okay? The Red-Green Alliance is something we need to be very alert to. And what that alludes to is red being the socialist Marxists and green being the Islamic jihadists. Because if you look and see what is happening on our streets, who are the ones out there wandering around, waving Palestinian flags and wearing keffiyehs? Where are these people being supported? Where are they being defended? Which side of the aisle is standing up and supporting a guy like Mahmoud Khalil, who now wants to sue the Trump administration for $20 million because he feels he has a right to go on college and university campuses and incite violence? When you look at this Red-Green Alliance, a lot of folks here, I know if I say this name, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, but the Democrat nominee for mayor in New York City, Zohran Mamdani, okay? He is an example of this Red-Green Alliance. But it's not just him. If you go back, think about Barack Hussein Obama. Remember Barack Hussein Obama when he was there with Joe the plumber, and he said something that clearly was indicative of his philosophy of governance when he said, I believe we have to spread the wealth around. That's a basic socialist economic principle, wealth redistribution. And then even in his re-election in 2012 in Richmond, Virginia, Obama stood up and said, if you own a business, you didn't build that. I want you to think about how disingenuous, how offensive that is to the small business entrepreneurs all across the United States of America, which make up 70 to 75% of our economy. But then also remember, after Obama got first elected, when he gave a speech at the University of Cairo, you can go back and you can watch that speech. Who are the people that he asked to sit front and center at the University of Cairo for his speech? The Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is the granddaddy of Islamic jihadist movements going back to 1928, and they still exist to today. And what you see happening in Texas now is also indicative of a Red-Green Alliance. Young lady right here, Ms. Pena, just talked about Greg Casar, the congressional representative who is part of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Louis Goldman and I know, having served up there, that progressive is the name that European communists gave to themselves to come to the United States of America at the turn of the century. If you look at the policies, the philosophies of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, it is communists and Marxists. So that's really what we have here representing our capital area in Congress in Washington, D.C. from the state of Texas. But also think about what just recently happened in Alvarado, Texas. Alvarado, Texas, Highway 67. About an hour away from where I live in Garland. And I often get out, and I have to let y'all know, I did start riding motorcycles again last November. Okay, I took 5 years off, okay? So continue to keep me in your prayers. But I always go down Highway 67, headed over to Glen Rose, and going over to, Texas Hill Country. 12 people set up an ambush against a federal detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. These 12 individuals, I know that there's still a massive manhunt for one of them, Benjamin Song. They're all members of a group called Antifa. Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. Antifa is a leftist organization. Antifa is a communist Marxist organization. Antifa is no different from the National Socialists of the mid-1930s to late 1930s, the SA, the brown shirts of Adolf Hitler. But that's what we have right here in Texas. So what I want you to start thinking about is what is happening here with this Red-Green Alliance, even here in the state of Texas. This co-joining of progressives and socialists and Marxists along with Islamic jihadists. I don't know how many of you all have ever heard of this document. You can pull it down. It's open source intelligence. It's the Muslim Brotherhood Strategic Plan for America. This was written in 1991 by a guy by the name of Muhammad Akram. It was found in an FBI raid of a home in Northern Virginia, Falls Church, Virginia, in 2004. This document became evidence in the largest Islamic terrorist funding case in United States history, the Holy Land Foundation case. Where was the Holy Land Foundation case? Houston, Texas. This was discovered in 2008. Let me read you a couple of excerpts from this. Page 4, the enablement of Islam in North America, meaning establishing an effective and a stable Islamic movement led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which adopts Muslims' causes domestically and globally, which works to expand the observant Muslim base, aims at unifying and directing Muslims' efforts, presents Islam as a civilization alternative, and supports the global Islamic State wherever it is. Page 5. This movement must plan and struggle to obtain the keys and the tools of this process in carrying out this grand mission as a civilization jihadist responsibility. The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process, with all the word means. The Ikhwan, meaning the Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging this miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers. We must possess a mastery of art of coalitions, the art of absorption, and the principle of cooperation. The final part of this document lists all of the organizations that are umbrellaed under the Muslim Brotherhood. And when you read this list of organizations, guess what? A lot of them are freely operating right here in the state of Texas. CARE, Council for American Islamic Relations, which was an unindicted co-conspirator in this Holy Land Foundation case. And as a matter of fact, how many people remember the person that killed Americans New Year's Eve this past year in New Orleans? Where was he from? Houston, Texas. Where did he attend? The Islamic Center for Greater Houston. And there was CARE who told all of the congregants in that mosque, do not talk to law enforcement. Any law enforcement wants to interview you, you send them to us. And guess what happened? Judge, congressman, we acquiesced to them. Has anyone heard any further investigations about that mosque or that Islamic Center? I live in Garland, Texas. In Garland, Texas, we have a mosque, an Islamic Center, and be very careful with your words, as I think the recent Tarrant County GOP chairman found out. You don't go out there and just say Muslims. You have to be very specific and talk about Islamofascism, Islamists, jihadists, things of this nature. Because if not, you get caught up in that web, and then they put you on defense. But even in Garland, Texas, there's a mosque that's aligned with an Islamic jihadist group called Jamaat Tabligh. Look it up. Right here in my city of Garland, Texas. Now, everyone now knows about this Epic Center up there in the Plano and the Josephine, Texas area. But how many of y'all know that the mayor of Plano has given $1.3 million to this Epic movement? And basically you have a city-run mosque in Plano, Texas, which if you go and you study some of the things that they're saying, it's quite disturbing. But not just that mayor. How many of you all read the report by Sam Westrop of the Islamist Watch of Middle East Forum? Sam Westrop lives up in Dallas. Texas state government gives $13 million to Islamic mosques and community groups. Just came out last month. We gave over $600,000 to the mosque that the guy who killed Americans on New Year's Eve attended. Now again, I'll be happy to give this to Marcia, and she can share with each and every one of you. But this is what's happening right here in the state of Texas. So yeah, we can talk about, hand count paper ballots. We can talk about all these other things. But the enemy is within our gates. And if they ever get the chance to take a state like Texas, which is what they are aiming to do, the future of the United States of America is over. Now, so many people will sit and say, Colonel, you're just blowing smoke. This couldn't really happen. Really? You mean like the state that gave us Ronald Reagan? What kind of state is that today? You look at the state of Washington. There's blue in basically a couple of places in the state of Washington. That's King County and Tacoma to the south. The rest of it is all red. Colorado used to be a strong red state. And look at what has happened to Colorado. Why? Because of Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs. Who runs and controls all of the major population centers in the state of Texas right now? Dallas County, Travis County,
Houston,
Bexar County, Harris County, El Paso County. That is the model of the progressive socialist left. And now they are aligning themselves with Islamic jihadists, and they are getting a foothold right here in the state of Texas. Go back and look at some of the resolutions that were passed in this last legislative session. Resolutions to honor Pakistan. Resolutions to honor Ramadan. That's what's happening in our state. And if we don't, as you say, Marshall, educate ourselves and become more aware of what is happening, then the next thing you know, it's going to creep up and you're going to say, what happened in Texas? So you are so important. Because being in Williamson County, you're one of those collateral footholds that you cannot allow what is coming out of Travis County to extend into this county. Just the same as going south into Hayes County. So you have to be a bulwark. You have to stand strong in order to push it back. And then we have to work very hard enabling the collapsing of it even in Travis County. Just the same as in Dallas County. Y'all know about Highway 360, right? You know what the folks over in Tarrant County say? If you're from Dallas County, get your ass back on the other side of 360 before the sun goes down. If they don't want the mess that's in Dallas County, we put over to Tarrant County. 5-to-1 worse crime in Dallas than there is Fort Worth. And all you have to do is look at who's in charge of Dallas, who's in charge of Dallas County. Trendier Robbles running all over Dallas County. Ain't running all over Tarrant County. So we have got a fight on our hands. So start paying attention to this red-green alliance. Don't just think this is something far away in New York City. It's happening right here in our backyard. And I'll make sure that Marcia gets the links to these documents that I have because I want you to be better informed, better educated, and therefore you can be better activated. And so, I'll ask now, what are your questions?
There was an article about some activity in Spain that was Muslims and Christians. So the same sort of deal, they're allowing that invasion, and now they're starting to reach the borders.
Well, that's all across Europe.
Yeah.
How many folks here have ever heard of the principle of al-Hijra? Okay. Al-Hijra is this Islamic principle of migration. And if you go back and you study the history of Islam, remember that the Prophet Muhammad was rejected in Mecca. And he conducted what is called the Hijra, the migration. And that's when he went out to Medina. And if you study the Quran, you will see an incredible change in the verses and the tone of the Quran in what is called the first Mecca phase to then the Medina phase. And it becomes very violent. And so the Al-Hijra principle means that by migration, they believe that they can come into any country and overtake it. I mean, most popular name in Western Europe right now is Muhammad. I mean, you go to some neighborhoods, and that's kind of what they try to, look at setting up in Epic City, is this parallel system of justice that they call Sharia law, which undermines our constitutional law. So be very circumspect about that. Yes, ma'am.
You did a wonderful presentation. I've listened to you all day. So
No woman wants to listen to me every day. Go ahead.
My question is, so I'm actually C-35.
Yes.
It's Travis County
Yes.
and Dare County, so it's a big mess. What do you anticipate with the whole rezoning and or redistricting during the legislative session?
Hey, look, I think this is something that we need to get at. One of the things you have to think about is why is the progressive socialist left so upset about deporting people that are here legally? Because they want them census. They want them to be counted. They want representative districts to be based upon numbers, not citizenship. So we got an opportunity here, and there are going to be lawsuits, there are going to be all these things, but we got to stand strong. Because wherever the left can do anything to manipulate redistricting as a blue state, they do that. One of the things we got to get tough. We don't have a real killer instinct sometimes, and that's something we need to develop. And I can tell you, you're going to hear from a guy, he's tough. And he really called out the leadership when we were up there in Congress on so many occasions. And if we don't understand this threat that we have domestically and otherwise, we could lose not just this state, we could lose this nation, we could lose liberty and freedom and independence for the entire world. So I think it's very important that we do pursue this redistricting here because there's a reason why a lot of these folks are down in Harris County. Remember that Donald Trump only won, he won Texas by a little over, that was this time, 15%. Back 4 years ago, like 600,000. Remember Chris Hollins, who was the supervisor of elections in Harris County? He had over 1 million of these ballots that were somewhere in a warehouse. That's why this whole thing about, mail-in ballots, that's unconstitutional. Okay? Either you're there in person or you apply for an absentee ballot. There's no such thing as a mail-in ballot. There's no such thing as just mailing ballots out to unverified addresses. Colony Ridge. How many ballots do you think could have been put up in Colony Ridge? So these are the type of things that are happening here. So yes, I think that we have an opportunity to show that Texas wants to make sure that only Texans are voting, only Americans are voting. And we need to do everything we possibly can, county-wide, to have an enforcement of voter registration roll review every month, do 10 to 15%. But every month we need to be doing voter registration roll review. Yes, sir. And thank you for your service and welcome home.
Connecting a couple more dots for everybody, in 2005, Organization of Islamic Cooperation set out some more goals, especially to take over the UN. In 2011, the UN passed Resolution 1618.
Yeah.
And we stood to that, but also in our own Texas legislature in 2017, everybody's waving their hands that we got a law passed instead of American laws for American courts. That whole thing is just as in the middle of that legislation that's active right now today. Allows a judge in our state to recognize Sharia law. It's called comedy, and it's an internationally known recognition.
Yeah, what the gentleman is referring to, the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, OIC, was working through the United Nations for this Resolution 1618, which basically says if you speak out anything against Islam, truth, fact, that's a crime. And so we have got to be very careful about that. And again, study Sharia law, because this is a parallel system of jurisprudence that they believe that they're superior. they're superior to any other type of law. And that's why you see the problems you see in Europe right now, especially in England. Yes, ma'am.
Could you please, I know Marshall will know, probably half of these people know, but verify that the military, active military, can vote in their home state, their hometown, or home county, as long as they're in the military. I had a neighbor argue with me that she had been an election judge in Bergen County a few years ago. It was illegal. I said it is
No,
not.
of course not. That's why you apply for an absentee ballot, and it's mailed to you, signature verification, and all that good stuff is mailed back in.
But she argued that was illegal, he couldn't do it. I said, he can.
Well, and see, that shows someone is ignorant of the law.
Right.
And they
And
should
she
not be
was
an
a
election.
judge
Should
in Bergen
be an
County.
election. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any chance you'd become involved in the current administration?
Any chance I'll be involved in the current administration, you have to ask whoever the head of the current administration. I don't know. Look, all I know is I'm supposed to be right here with y'all. Okay? So that's the most important thing. I'm obedient to God's word. Yes, ma'am.
Take this for a question. Talk about Sharia law in Texas. You
Okay.
see remnants, any?
Absolutely. Okay, your first question. Absolutely, you could see that. If you go back some time, Beth Van Dyne, she's a member of Congress now, but when she was a mayor over in Irving, Texas, that was something she fought against. And man, they came after her tooth and nail. But she got that, shot down. But again, it's this creeping civilizational jihadist process and approach that they will continue to try to do this until we completely shut it down. And that's really what you saw as an epic city. Hey, guess what they just did in Mumbai, India last week? They took down all of the call to prayer speakers in Mumbai, India. They took them all down, over 1,200. And you know why they said? There was noise pollution. But if you go back and you read and understand the translation of that call to prayer, basically what it is projecting is dominance in your subjugation. So yeah, Mumbai, India, they said no more. Yes, Marshall. Oh, second part.
Okay, again, I want intel here.
Intel.
Obviously, DOJ failed to bring charges on the city. What's going to happen in the future? Do you see that continual pushback? Or is
Oh,
that-
I think you will continue to see them trying, and again, this comes back to that red-green alliance. You have the ACLU. The ACLU is going to step in and they're going to try to put pressure saying, well, you're violating the freedom of religion and freedom of expression, all these things. And that's the gap that so many times people are exploiting. Y'all know that once upon a time, you could burn a flag, the American flag. That changed with the Supreme Court decision, I think it was 1989, 86, 89. But remember Rick Monday? Remember the Chicago outfielder, the LA Dodgers baseball game, when a couple of knuckleheads tried to run out there in the outfield and set the American flag on fire? And Rick Monday came out there and tackled him, knocked him down, and picked up the American flag. No, you're laughing, but once upon a time, before that Supreme Court decision, in 48 states in the District of Columbia, it was a crime to burn the American flag. But somehow, the Supreme Court said it is a part of your freedom of expression. So we have to be very circumspect about, again, those gaps by which we can be exploited. It's not that we're saying anything against a religion, but a theocratic political construct and system. No, we don't want to see that, especially as it tries to undermine the foundations of our constitutional republic and our rule of law. Yes, ma'am.
The DOJ came down and investigated Epic City. They have now pulled out and gone. So what's next?
Well, I think that what we have to do is make sure we keep the pressure on internally here in the state of Texas, or else they're going to come back and try this all over again. But like I said, just understand that the ACLU is going to come. Who are the ones out there defending Mahmoud Khalil? Y'all know what I'm talking about, Mahmoud Khalil. It was ACLU. So again, it's this red-green alliance that we have. Leftist, socialist, progressive, communist, Marxist, and Islamic jihadists. Yes, ma'am.
Are they going to get it stopped, the Epic City?
That's up to us here in the state of Texas. It really does come down to us here in the state of Texas.
Does the cavalry not come?
Well, obviously, if the DOJ has said that they're not going to take it up, no.
So we're the Calvary.
Yes.
We need to change that.
Yes,
mindset.
Marcia,
I don't-
final question.
Can you help remind us what the legislator's oath of office is, specifically about protecting both foreign and domestic?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, Congressman here and I, we both took that oath as members of the United States Army and also members of the United States House of Representatives. But the interesting thing is, and Congressman Goldberg will back me up on this, is when you're standing there and this new Congress is coming in and you're supposed to repeat the oath, nobody says go. I mean, I even looked around, when I was sworn in up there, and there were people that sat down. The Speaker of the House reads the words, but you have legislators in the United States House, they don't ever say, verbally say it. And that little photo that you see, that's a stage photo. You stand there with your hand on the Bible. Or, like Keith Ellison did, he put his hand on the Koran. He was a United States member of Congress. So there are a lot of things that some people take their oath to heart, some people don't. When you have a person like a Rashida Tlaib, who in a building that your taxpayer funds pay for, she flies the flag of a terrorist organization. That tells you all you need to know. There's a great quote from the Roman statesman Marcus Tullius Cicero, where he talks about how a nation can survive its fools. It can even survive its ambitious, but it cannot survive the enemy from within, who commits acts of treason, who walks about speaking in the same language as you, who walks about the halls of government. That's what we are. And if we don't wake up and understand it, I mean, the choice for this country is night and day. It's very clear. But you've got to understand this red-green alliance that is forming. It is even right here in the Lone Star State. The only state in the United States of America that has its own Declaration of Independence. The state of Texas. So yeah, we don't really need the DOJ to do our business, as we say down south. We just need to do our business.
Right. Can you tell people how to reach your podcast?
Oh, Steadfast the Law is the podcast. I'm out there on Substack, and I'm on all the social media platforms except for TikTok, because I don't dance with the communist Chinese. So thank y'all very much. God bless.
We have something. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I retired from TI, and one of the men that worked for me was an artist, and he approached Mr. West for...
Mr. West is my dad. I'm Alan.
Okay. I always get you back.
I know.
About the possibility of him entering a Black History Month art contest, and he agreed. And so Jackie Champion is his name. He lives up near Paris, Texas, and he has been trying to get this picture back to Alan all these years. And last time I saw you was in Tyler, and I talked to you about this picture, and you said, keep it over your computer and keep the rats out of your house. So it's been over my computer for 3 years. I have no more rats. This is your picture.
This will make a good dartboard for when I upset my wife.
I need a picture of that so I can send it to Jackie.
Okay, go back there.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.